We have a friend who is been on the streets for quite a while and literally goes by the name Peace. Has given up his, I guess, Christian name, if we want to call it that, and just goes by Peace. Yeah, so I'm going to introduce myself. I apologize. My name is Michael Kimberl. I am a longtime homeless rights advocate here in Pensacola. I am a lead organizer with Food Not Bombs for the past 12 years. Come November.
You have a Food Not Bombs out here?
We do.
That's great.
12. November will be 12 years solid. So we could also probably say it's the longest sustained protest in Pensacola as well. So aside from that, I also am the director of a place called Shitoshi Forest, which is owned by a company I started called Sean's Outpost. It is a 9-acre campground for people experiencing homelessness. We give 15 to 20 people a place to set up a campsite and provide amenities like running water, garbage pickup. What's the other thing I provide? Oh, portalets. Yes, bathrooms. It's very important. Give people basically it's just a safe place to be where they can keep their belongings and try to focus on how they get out of the situation they found themselves in instead of being stuck in survival mode. And then I am also the director of a place called the Alfred Washburn Center, which is a day center for people experiencing homelessness. And so we provide a place for people to take a shower, do a load of laundry, set up mailbox service for people who otherwise don't have an address. And basically it's just a place where they can hang out, drink unlimited coffee, pastries, and wash their clothes and give them back some dignity. So back to where I was on the story, and I apologize. I just like to jump into things. So I guess it's been about a month now, maybe 3 weeks to a month. We were doing Food Not Bombs, and at the end, I have a really good friend by the name of Hollywood Jones. Some of y'all that follow me and know who I am, know my love for Hollywood. Hollywood and I like to play music in the park. He sometimes brings a glockenspiel or just different musical instruments, and we just make improv music in the park for a while. And so this evening we had done that. We had been playing music. Everything was really enjoyable. Our friend Peace was sitting on the steps enjoying a nice vegan meal from Food Not Bombs. And we wrapped up and waved goodbye to everybody right around 8 p.m. and we all left. The next morning, something I do is I check JailView every morning, see the arrest records, because more often than not, someone I know has been arrested. And that just is a side effect of class war. We basically prey on our poor. But I saw that our friend Peace had been arrested, and I have learned over the years not to get, hot-headed, when I see a friend of mine's been arrested, because sometimes some of my friends do some stupid shit, and, and you're like, kind of ask for it, and so, but Peace's charges were pretty steep. They were a battery on a police officer. There was resisting arrest with violence. There was also giving a false ID to a police officer. And then there was this other ordinance charge that I looked up, and it was basically park hour rules. And so, of course, as soon as I read all that, knowing Peace is the person he is, hence his name Peace, I immediately was like, this is fucking bullshit, and decided I needed to see the police report. Because he had refused to give his name, I had a hard time pulling his police report. Usually you can do that online. In this particular case, I had to go down to the police station, and funny enough, they didn't want to give it to me. The person back there was like, well, if you don't have a name, I can't give you a police report. And I was like, well, how many John Does did you arrest at 8 p.m. on Friday night? You know, and they're like, I'm pretty certain y'all know who I'm talking about. And they huddled up and talked for a little bit and finally decided to, you know, give me the police report. And it was as bad as I thought it was, unfortunately. So essentially, in the police officer's own words, Peace was sitting on the steps, not bothering anybody. The officer walked up to tell him the park was closed. Peace got up, started gathering his belongings, and the officer was like, no, 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 no. I need to identify you. I need to know who you are. And Peace, not wanting to participate, looked at the officer, and this is what the officer says. He went, shh, and turned his back on the officer and went back to getting his shit. And the officer obviously was offended and grabbed Peace from behind. Peace then protected himself or acted, you know, in reaction from being grabbed from behind and pulled himself away from the officer. And in the process, the officer says that 2 of Peace's fingernails scratched the officer's wrist. And that was worthy of battery on a police officer in resisting arrest with violence. Yeah, super boo. Yeah, so this is, I see a lot of new faces. So this is a further example of this new downtown policing that they have started. A while back, the Downtown Improvement Board, which I see some of y'all are aware of, and the CRA, which is the Community Redevelopment Agency, yeah, which basically consists of all of our city council members. They make up the Community Redevelopment Agency. They teamed up together to give the DIB special powers with, at first, 2 officers and now 4 officers to engage with our homeless community. And the results have been, in my opinion, disastrous to our homeless community. It also essentially says that our homeless are criminals and that being poor is a crime because, as we all know, you aren't supposed to even have to engage with an officer unless you're in the middle of committing a crime or suspicion of a crime. And so having these officers that have the right to engage with people simply because they have nowhere else to go seems pretty criminal in and of itself to me. And I've been trying to expose it. So thank y'all for coming tonight for me to expose this. They're wanting to double down on this type of stuff. They are now wanting to hire social workers to ride along with the police officers to give them more justification in using police officers. But what that ends up being is the social worker comes up to talk to them. If they don't want to engage with the social worker, then you get to talk to the guy with the gun. And that's not really a choice. If I don't want to engage with somebody, I should be allowed to not engage with somebody. And that should be for anybody, whether they're rich or poor alike. And we're starting to change those laws here in town and use these officers against our poor. This Thursday, they just passed a new ordinance where they can now arrest someone for blocking a sidewalk, which, you know, they tried to make it sound like, you know, it's going to be for the tables down Palafox, but they actually rent the right to block the sidewalk. So it's not about those businesses. They also said it was about cars blocking sidewalks, but I honestly think that it is about people and their belongings blocking the sidewalks. I also am very curious as to how it's going to affect our protest culture. Standing on a sidewalk with a sign is now potentially blocking a sidewalk and is an arrestable offense. The punishment can be a maximum of $500 and 60 days in jail, which is, yeah, again, super boo. 60 days. But apparently, being in the park after close is you can be arrested and spend up to 60 days in jail. That is the punishment for being in the park after park hours.
But if you park in a private, like, house's driveway, going to, like, gallery night or something like that, they give you a parking ticket for $10.
Correct.
Which
Yeah.
seems the same thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and it's I don't know if y'all could hear what Carrie was saying. Yeah, and that further is an example of other ordinances they use against the poor in our community. So we have an open container ordinance, and what they do there is if you're sitting in a park with an open beer, they can give you a fine, and that fine maxes out at $500. I had a friend, his name was Kevin. Kevin left his family because of his alcoholism, and loved his family dearly. And so much so, and his family loved him, that his daughters would come out to the park to visit their dad. And he had two beautiful daughters. And so Kevin never left that fucking park. He was always at that park. And he was an alcoholic, so he was always drinking in the park. And so he also got a lot of tickets that he had no intention of ever paying. So he would then go to jail, get out of jail, go buy some beer, go back to the park, crack it open, wait for his daughters, and the cycle continued. And I even got in arguments with cops, about the cycle, that like, you're just, this guy's going to jail. He's not going to pay any of these fines, and then he's going to get out and get more beer and come right back to the park. Like, we're not fixing the problem. And, officers always respond with, I'm just doing my job, which is, I call that the Nuremberg defense. And so Kevin eventually ended up contracting tuberculosis in the county jail from not paying these fines. The nice thing about it was while he spent time in jail, the social workers in the jail were able to get him his Social Security and everything lined up. So when he finally got out of, well, not in the jail, sorry, in the hospital, because he was quarantined in the hospital for months with tuberculosis. And they got his Social Security and everything in line. So when he got out of the hospital, he actually got to move into a home. And he stayed there until he eventually passed away. But, I always wonder, why couldn't we have just gotten that shit for him ahead of time and gotten him in a home so he didn't have to repeatedly go to jail? And we're seeing that same thing with this camping ordinance, with this new sidewalk ordinance, is that we're just going to keep rotating people in and out of jail without any, real solutions, no addressing of what causes homelessness, what is going to help people get out of homelessness. We're now hearing our sheriff is asking the county for, I think, $1 million to hire 8 officers in the county to engage with the homeless community, and is calling for stricter ordinances to give his officers the tools to engage with the homeless. Engagement scares the shit out of me. Things are getting kind of heavy out here in the homeless community. We're seeing a lot of move along orders and people getting pushed out of certain areas into other areas.
any public spaces left downtown?
So, no, because they are now enforcing the downtown camping ordinance. And so the only place that you could technically camp downtown would be on private property that someone's allowing you to be on. Otherwise, if you're in a park or any government-owned properties, you are in violation of the camping ordinance. And for a while, they were getting away with enforcing it without it getting on our radar. So what they were doing was, same with the thing they do with open container, was they issue a citation. And it's a citation that no one can pay. Like, they're homeless, they're not going to pay a citation, they're not going to show up to court. And so it's we'll arrest you later, knowing that no one's going to pay these fines and that they're eventually going to go to jail. And so what eventually happened that kind of got it on our radar was we had a gentleman that refused to sign the citation. And they used that as a reason to arrest him. And so when I was checking the arrest blotters in the morning, I saw that camping ordinance that we had fought so many years ago, and was like, ooh, we need to start investigating this because this is pretty serious. The only other time I'd ever seen it used was they had busted somebody for marijuana, and I think they used the camping ordinance to justify why they searched the man's vehicle. Because otherwise they would have had no right to search the man's vehicle, so they had to add the camping ordinance to his charges. But recently we have seen someone get arrested on solely the camping ordinance. And so they are upping the ante. And what I think is happening is they have gotten the low-hanging fruit to move along. So the people that are, don't want to fight, they're like, hey, no problem, officer, I'm out of here. Those people are now moved out of downtown, and all of the fuck yous, I'm not leaving, are still around. And I love those people. Those are my people. They're always not the easiest to represent because, we got problems. I do as well, but it's they have a right to have somewhere to be. And what we don't have in our community is that. We don't even have what we refer to as a low barrier shelter. People familiar with what that is? I don't mind breaking that down real quick. So currently, our shelter system has barriers. So for example, Waterfront Rescue Mission charges $10 a night to the poor to stay there, as well as you have to blow into a breathalyzer to be able to stay. And so that's not really meeting people where they're at. I encounter people that need to have a beer in the morning just to stop their hands from shaking so I can have a good conversation with them. And so how am I supposed to help that guy when I'm like, you got to blow sober before I'll help you? And extremely. So my start with them, little side note, one of my starts in homeless outreach was going out and giving sack lunches. And one of the places we would go is along the railroad tracks behind Waterfront Rescue Mission. And there would always be a group of people that were sitting along the railroad tracks that were denied food. And we'd ask them, like, well, why were y'all denied food? Like, that's just really fucked up. And they were like, it was always that they were late to the prayer service. And so if you missed the prayer service, you didn't get food. And I just remember being like, I was raised Catholic and I went to all the Bible study and shit. And
that's not what Jesus did.
no, after that Sermon on the Mountain and he was multiplying the loaves and fishes, he wasn't like, yo, bro, you catch that sermon?
Yeah.
No, like, fuck you then, go on, like that shit didn't happen, so. That's some really fucked up shit to me. And so we went and fed those people every day. Went and brought them sack lunches, and people would, be like, oh, God bless you. And like, well, we're atheists. And oh, fuck yeah. Like, I don't have to say that shit no more, And so that was really cool too, I mean, we still encounter Christians as well, but to have people that were just like, hey, I've just been saying God bless you because it gets me free shit. It's like, hey, cool, you don't have to do that shit with us, it's fucking, this area is heavily helped by the Christian right. And, well, in the sense, and so what I mean by that is that they come and bring food. They help keep people alive, and that it is important. Now, get them to open their church doors to provide people with shelter, and they start talking liability, and so there is an issue with that. But as far as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I need people out here keeping my people alive, and giving them food, because there's more people than we can address. It's exactly. I mean, this is the home of, resurrecting dead babies and riding Brontosaurus by Jesus and shit. We have some really crazy evangelical Christianity shit that goes on here. like the Ruckmanites and all of that. Like it's extremely extreme. Like I think this is one of the birthplaces of young Earth creationism and all of that. And it is in Pensacola. Yeah.
There was a theme park?
Yeah, Kent. So there was. So let's talk some shit. Yeah, so there was a gentleman here in Pensacola named Kent Hovind, and
Sounds like
and so Kent Hovind started a place over by Pensacola Christian Academy called Dinosaur Adventureland, and it was a trap. Like you go there being like, oh cool, it's dinosaurs gonna take my kids, and it's like, well, while we have you, dinosaurs are cool, but these are the behemoths from the Bible, and they were around at the same time as Jesus, and yeah, and they had a zip line as well. Like that was the coolest part. They had a zip line, and so the ironic part was that he was like, since this is about Jesus and young Earth creationism, I don't have to pay taxes for this theme park, and the federal government went, yeah, bullshit, motherfucker. Like we want some money, and he went to federal prison, like for not paying his taxes. He has since gotten out of prison and has bought more land in Alabama and has started his dinosaur shit up there. But like, yeah, it's still there, but I don't. It's been a long time since I've tried to go through it. There was a gentleman who had won Kent Hovind's house in an auction. And he was a homeless gentleman and ended up moving in the house and living in it with no power, electricity, and it drove the Hovinds crazy. Like they had his picture on a website and all of this, and he would come to the Washburn Center every day to take a shower and stuff like that.
Haunted with dinosaurs?
No, but it's right next to the dinosaur Adventureland stuff. So. Yeah. But I don't know, like Billy has since passed away, so I don't know what happened to the house afterwards. But things that you can do to help is get active. You don't have to participate with us, just do some shit.
Where is it?
Oh, sorry. It's at Martin Luther King Plaza, downtown Pensacola, on Palafox and Gregory. There's a bust of Martin Luther King. We've been asked to move from there many times by the city, and we refuse. We refuse to move. Like, that's kind of a mecca of activism in our community. You know.
Did you say it was broken?
What's broken?
Did you say the statue was broken?
No, the statue's not broken.
Okay.
It's a bust of Martin. Sorry. Yeah, no, it's a bust of Martin Luther King Jr.
And they want to remove the center of activism from that bus.
Well, they want they want to remove an activist group from being active at that bust. Yeah.
A lot of people do activism at that bus.
They do. No, it is like protests start there and end there. Marches start there. I mean, it is. Yeah, it is. It's the spot. Candlelight vigils, like, and I think Leroy Boyd and Movement for Change, who fought to have that put there, wanted that. They wanted that to be a mecca for activism, and they wanted us to be active in our community and to participate, because that's what they don't want. They don't want us silent. Or they do want us silent. They don't want us talking. That's why I started the Mike Kimberl Talk Shit. A while back, I talked some shit online about a homeless man, an ex-homeless man being arrested for giving out a sleeping bag to another homeless man. And it was on Easter Sunday, and I got a call from the sheriff, pissed off that I ruined his Easter. And he wanted me to reach out to him to handle these situations quietly. And so a while back, we had a situation that happened, and I was like, well, cool, let me try this. Let me try to handle this quietly and get it resolved. If the sheriff's got the power to fix shit, let's do this. And the sheriff's office kicked the can for 3 months and then called me and said, you have 6 days to remove these people from the property or they'll be arrested. And I was like, well, if this is the what I get for keeping silent, then there's no fucking reason for me to stay silent. And so I'm going to start talking shit. And so that's what started all of this. And I'm going to continue it because I think it's more effective when we know what's going on in our community.